Hello, I'm Robin Cantrell-Fenwick. I'm the Chief Executive of Baker Richards, and I'm going to share with you some work undertaken by myself together with my colleagues Anna Fedjushina, Sylvie McGowan, and David Rees into low price tickets and price sensitive audiences. What we're going to explore is what's the potential here around low and very low priced tickets. Why consider introducing low prices into your pricing mix if you don't have them there already? The relationship between low prices and accessibility, how people accessing low price tickets feel about doing so. We'll look at some real examples and some fresh market research and the factors affecting success. And we're going to do all of this through the lens of looking at very low income households in the UK, and in particular recipients of state benefits like universal credit. So who is on low income in the UK, or rather how many people are? I'm going to look at some data from 2021-22, and 22% are on what's called relative low income or relative poverty. Relative poverty is not an entirely straightforward calculation, but it broadly means those who earn less than 60% of an average wage today. So the threshold today, as I speak to you in March of 2024, is somewhere around £20,000. 17% are in absolute poverty, which is defined as those who earn less than 60% of what people were being paid on average in the financial year 2010 to 2011. So my best guess here is that the threshold for absolute poverty is around £15,500 a year. You have to sort of adjust for inflation. It's not completely straightforward. Dare I suggest the government quite like it that way. And actually, just yesterday, as I'm filming this, it was announced that the number of people in absolute poverty has gone up by around 1% to 18%. So relative poverty, earning less than 60% of today's average wage, absolute poverty, earning less than 60% of the average wage from 13 years ago. So that's 8.9 million people in absolute poverty, and they are part of a wider group of 14.4 million people with relative low income. Recently, I presented this data to the Ticketing Professionals Conference in Birmingham, and there were 600 attendees at that conference. And if the 600 attendees had been a representative sample of the UK population, 132 of them would have been in relative low income, with 102 in absolute poverty. Universal credit, which I've mentioned already, is the main working age benefit in the UK. It's got nearly 6.5 million recipients. Aside from the state pension, pension credit is the main retirement age benefit, but it's most important to know that there are many more people on universal credit than on any other benefit. If you're not familiar with how it works, here's a fairly typical example. A couple living in London, aged 25 or over, will receive £579 per month. That's for them both. That's not £579 each. If they have children who are not disabled, they'll receive £270 per child. If they have children with disabilities, it'll be a little more, and there's a cap. The state doesn't pay out beyond 2 children. If one of them is unable to work, they'll have a limited capability to work. They'll receive a supplement of £146. So a couple with one child, where one is unable to work, but who have no other complicating factors such as disabilities or caring responsibilities, could expect to receive around £995 per month. You'll all no doubt be familiar with headlines around benefit scroungers. The evidence, though, is that benefits that people receive are often not enough. When it comes to essentials such as food, heating, and suitable clothing, research published last year by the House of Commons showed that more than half of people in relative or absolute poverty have gone without these essentials, 56%. 50% are behind on paying their bills or are struggling to keep up with payments. 40% have been pushed into debt. So when we come to think about this group of people as a potential audience, when we're thinking about the role of low price tickets for low income household, what's the potential? Well, for clarity, let's round these numbers and say we're talking here about an audience nationally of between 9 and 14 million people. And that's what we're going to be digging into in this session. How do we connect with this audience through price? Why should we consider low prices in our pricing mix or in our pricing toolbox? We've been showing this slide in talks and training for well over a decade now because it demonstrates that there is far more to price than just picking a price point and then moving it up or down. We do tend to focus a lot on this question, what are the prices? But often as important are these other questions. How many prices? What are the number of units available at each price in your inventory? What discounts are available to who and when? Are discounts always available, or are we running last minute lotteries, for example? What surcharges are charged and to who? What's the relationship to psychological price thresholds, those big round numbers that we can be reluctant to cross? What's the range of prices and the relationship between them? When we talk to an organization about price, one of the things that we'll often do is work with them to establish a written statement that we call the price proposition, which is to say, within a broader value proposition, what is price specifically doing? And that price proposition is a statement of the messages that you want to send out to your customers. These messages need to be aligned with your objectives. They can be thought of as a series of carrots and sticks where we are rewarding good behavior, the behavior we want, and discouraging bad behavior, the behavior we don't want. Importantly, in a price proposition, the messages come in two forms: explicit headline price messages, or more subtle, implied underlying price messages. What do I mean by that? Well, let's look at some examples. So if our price proposition for a visitor attraction, say, is that every day is of equally good quality, then we might have no price differentiation by day. That would be an implicit pricing message. If we want visitors to attend off-peak, we might have motivating price differences off-peak pricing. That would be an explicit pricing message. If we say we want to reward frequent visitors, we might have our best prices for members and subscribers. Again, an explicit message. But when you take something like we want people to book early, there are all sorts of ways of achieving that objective. And one of them was simply to adopt a policy of no last minute discounting, which would be an implicit pricing message. If our proposition is we want more local people to visit, then we might have better or headline discounts for residents in specific postcodes or counties. And again, that would be using price as an explicit message, because the prices that we set, the prices that we offer, say something about our organization. Pricing is a form of communication.